Welcome to episode 95 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing Gordy Hoffman, screenwriter and founder of the Blue Cat Screenplay Competition. He recently did a short film called Dog Bowl, which got into Sundance, and he raised the money for it through Kickstarter. So we talk a bit about that. I'm getting ready to do my own Kickstarter campaign, so I really peppered him with questions, really just trying to figure out how he went about to raise so much money on Kickstarter. And we cover a variety of other screenwriting-related topics as well. Gordy has a world of experience. He teaches screenwriter. He's a produced screenwriter, so he's got a lot of insight into all aspects of screenwriting, and we dig into some of those in the interview as well. So stay tuned for that. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking us on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they are very much appreciated. A couple of quick notes. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 95. I talk quite often about the writers group that I'm in. Each week, 3 writers present about 25 pages of screenplay. The pages are read on stage by professional actors, and then the other writers in the group give notes to the presenting writer. It's an excellent way to workshop material. Hearing it performed out loud is invaluable, and then getting notes on the material as well can really help with the rewriting of the script. We're always looking for good writers to join our ranks. We meet once per week in Sherman Oaks on Tuesday night at 7:15. You have to be committed to coming most Tuesday nights, even if you're not presenting pages. I've been in some other writing groups where the writers only show up the day they're presenting. That is not this group. This group, you pretty much have to show up even when you're not presenting, because the other writers need to get notes from you as a writer as well. So it's a reciprocal thing. You show up when other writers are presenting, and then those other writers will show up when you are presenting. So it is a big commitment, but as I said, we're always looking for good writers. So if you're in the Sherman Oaks area, which is right on the corner, sort of where the 405 and the 101 meet in the Los Angeles area in Sherman Oaks. We meet on Tuesday night at 7:15. I would encourage anybody to come out and audit a few of the meetings. We're very open to letting people audit the meetings. It's completely free. You just show up on a Tuesday night, listen to the scripts, and then try and offer some, helpful comments on the scripts. So if you live in the LA area, check out the writers group, which is deadlinejunkies.com. You can find all the pertinent information there. Again, that's deadlinejunkies.com. I will link to this in the show notes. If you don't live in the LA area, you might consider trying to start a writers group in your area. As I said, over the years, I've gotten a lot out of this writers group that I'm in, so I highly recommend it really to anybody, any place in the world. Find other writers, find a few actors, and just start putting your material up in front of them and hearing it out loud and getting notes from other people. It really is invaluable. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide: how to write a professional logline and query letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. It really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So a quick few words about what I'm working on. So the rewrites, or the last week I mentioned I was meeting with the director of the script. It's a medical drama is how I'll refer to it. It's a medical drama. I originally wrote the first draft in about a week. I've since then have done a few rewrites on it, and I met with the director last week, so I got a few more notes. I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully they won't have a lot more notes. The notes were pretty mild as far as notes going. There really was just a matter of tweaking some characters and tweaking the ending a little bit, so it was not that bad. It took me about a day to implement these changes. What's interesting to one of the changes was changing the ending, and it kind of gives it more of an upbeat ending as opposed to sort of a more sad ending, and that was fine. I thought the ideas they had were actually good, and they were not, as I said, that hard to implement. It was a little rewriting a bunch of pages, but rewriting the ending is actually usually not that hard because there's not a lot of like changes that have to be made throughout the script. The ending, it was just kind of going in a different direction. I didn't have to go back and like set up a bunch of setups and have different payoffs and this kind of thing. So it was pretty easy to implement that note. The other note was getting a specific character, making one that was kind of a minor character in the original draft that I wrote and making her a more prominent character in the script. And what's interesting, this is not something that when I was starting out as a screenwriter, it's not something that you really anticipate until you've been in the business. I mean, essentially they have an actress, a prominent actress that they want to play this specific part, and the part just wasn't big enough. And there's a variety of reasons why she has to play this specific part, so we couldn't give her the other part. I mean, it's the age and ethnicity, and there's a bunch of things that make her perfect for this one role. But in her country, she's a big star, so we need to build that role up, and it needs to be much, much, much more prominent than the original role was. So there's no like artistic or creative reasons for this. It's purely like a business type of a decision where the director and the producer, they have this actress who wants to work with them, and she is a big actress in this country where they're from, and where the filmmakers are from. She's a very prominent actress, so they want to get her in it, and they want to give her a prominent role. So it was just a matter of going in and taking that role and making it more prominent. And again, it wasn't that difficult, but it's just kind of interesting. Like when I started out in screenwriting, I think the idea is that everything is to service the story and the artistic vision and this kind of thing. And most of these changes that I'm making, they're not really about the artistic vision or creativity or anything like that. It's really more practical decisions. You know, when I went down and actually looked at the physical set, it was a matter of rewriting this script to actually fit the physical set that we had access to. And those are the kinds of things that you don't really anticipate as you're, before you've like been in the practical, sort of the trenches of film production and seeing sort of the practicality of these things. And that's one of the reasons why I recommend shorts to people, is because doing a short gets you in those trenches and gets you kind of seeing a lot of the practical aspects to filmmaking as you're writing. So the other project I'm working on, I mentioned this too, it's a comedy, it's a spoof, and I basically whipped up a draft of that last week. So by Friday afternoon, I had a 72-page rough draft of that script, and I've written that fairly quickly. I worked maybe 2 weeks on the outline, and now I've worked maybe 2 weeks on, about a week and a half actually writing the script. But I basically have a solid first, I'd say it was more of a rough draft. I have a solid 72-page rough draft, and then this week I will go back. Keep in mind, this is a low-budget comedy script, so it only has to be 80 pages when they're actually going to shoot it. Maybe, I'm sure it'll end up being like 83, 85 pages, something like that. But so I'm at 72 now, and then I'll go in. There's a couple more comedy set pieces that I'm going to add in, and that will expand it out. The story is basically worked out in this 72-page rough draft. So this week I'm just going to go in and really try and make it funnier, just tweak things, a little more character development, just basically polish it up for this week. I'm recording this on Monday, so then on Friday I will hand it in. It's due on this Friday, so I'm going to polish it up this week, then I'll hand it in, and then we'll do some rewrites probably for another month, much like I've been doing on this medical drama, where you meet with the director, and in this case they don't have a director, but the producers. I'll meet with the producers on this. I'll hand it in on Friday, and then I'm sure next week or the week after I'll meet with them. They'll have a bunch of notes, and we'll continue to rewrite it. But the bottom line is the first draft is due this Friday, and I'm in pretty good position at this point to get it done. So I'm sure I'll hit that deadline. So my next big project, I've been talking about this now for months. My next big project is going to be producing my own low-budget feature film, and it's a very contained script. I wrote it specifically with this in mind, that like I'd say 60-70% of the action is like two guys in a house. So it should be pretty easy. We just got to find the house that will work for this production, and once we find that house, then like a lot of our production costs will be just taken care of, because it'll be in one location, not a lot of production moves. It's a fairly simple location. There's no special effects, very few. I think there's only about maybe six or eight real speaking roles. There's a couple of smaller roles, but there's like 6 main roles. 7. I think there's 7, I'd say 7 main roles, and then some sort of smaller roles on the peripheral. But contained script, so we should be able to do it pretty easily on a very, very low budget. But I did shoot the teaser trailer last week. I spent maybe a couple hours just basically making an assembly, taking the pieces and kind of throwing them together. So there's still a lot of editing and sound editing on something like a teaser trailer. It's going to be about it looks like it's going to be about 2 minutes. It's about a minute of the teaser trailer and then about a minute of me talking to the camera, basically pitching this. Hey, this is our Kickstarter campaign. So the whole thing will be 2 minutes, but the first minute is kind of the teaser trailer. And there's going to be a lot of sound editing, sound design on that. And I'm not particularly proficient in sound editing, so I might have to hire someone or find someone that can do that. But the video editing, I'm going to just try and get a rough cut of that. If not this week, as I said, I'm going to be spending a lot of time on the comedy script this week. But if not this week, then next week I'll definitely, hopefully dig into the getting that done. I did a little quick research on Kickstarter campaigns. It seems like launching in January and ending in February is the best time for these Kickstarter campaigns. So that's kind of what my goal is now. We're already, middle of October. So I'll get this Kickstarter campaign edited up and ready to go. And then I'll start doing my research, and that's really what the bottleneck is now. I've never done a Kickstarter campaign, so I need to just kind of learn about that. But that's kind of my goal. Probably I'll launch this in early January, maybe the second week of January, something like that. Let the holidays pass, and then I'll launch it the second week of January, so it'll end in the second week of February. And at this point, I should be in pretty good shape because all I've got to do, as I said, is edit this video up and then do a little more research on kind of how to run a Kickstarter campaign. And then I think they say you usually want about a month of ramp up where you start kind of building some momentum. So that will be, late November, and then December I'll be building the momentum, and then we'll launch in January. Anyway, that's what I'm working on. So let's get into today's interview with Gordy Hoffman. Here is the interview. Welcome back, Gordy, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming back on the show with me.
No problem, buddy. I'm glad to be back.
So to start out, I usually ask people kind of how they got their start in the entertainment industry. We did an interview a little over a year ago, so I'm going to point people to that. There's a lot of backstory with you. We talk a lot about Love Liza, so we're not going to go into any of that. It's episode 27. I'll link to that in the show notes and refer people to that. But I wanted to do a little pushback. There was a question I asked you about advice for screenwriters, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm paraphrasing you incorrectly, but your response was something to the effect of, write a great script, the rest will kind of take care of itself. And I want to do a little bit of pushback on that, just in terms of, I've spent my career basically writing B movies, and these B movies are all about understanding what producers can get financed and writing in that direction. And I think this is it's an excellent place for screenwriters to start out in. These scripts they're not even that good, much less great. And so the producers of these types of films are very open to working with new writers. They're very open to getting scripts from anywhere. So there's a lot of opportunity. I don't hear a lot of people talking about that. I mean, if you want to write a studio film, say what you want about the studio system. I mean, those scripts have to be great. They got to be just really buttoned up and airtight to succeed at that level. But I do think that there is some great opportunities for people at this independent level. And when I say independent level, I'm talking about these genre movies. But you've got to carefully consider your markets for that to work. So let's go ahead and just maybe hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, what specifically are you talking about? Like some, sort of like, directed video AFM type stuff, or is that
precisely?
I mean, are you actually going to be able to raise a family on that income and develop? I mean, how does writing a movie that is, like, as you said, not good, I guess, it's sort of product or whatever. How is that going to, how are you not going lateral with that? I mean, how does that go to, okay, you're being offered a really great, like, you're getting a job to, like, adapt John Gotti's life or something, or you're getting a crack at the new Marvel comic that's coming down the line, or you're, comedy wise or whatever, I mean, how does that build a career? There's
I think there's, yeah, no, I know there's
something to be said for, and I think I've gone through this in my own career as well, where you're like, well, if I make if I spend 2 years of my life making a certain amount of money, doing something, but it doesn't end up in the right hands and the money's all gone. How is that a long range plan to build a career if you're sort of, it doesn't really, that was sort of the thing that happened with me making the short Dog Bowl, is that I really rejiggered how my approach was. I said, okay, I'm trying to write a spec that I had a spec at a very top agency being sent to A-list talent, and I was sort of in this waiting game, and I wasn't attached to direct it or anything. It was just as a writer, I was trying to like crack the sort of the studio screenwriting circle, whatever, that game. And ultimately backtracking and being like, I'm going to make a $7,000 short that I direct and I control, led me now to get an assignment in 2015, which is sort of I have a really good assignment that I went a completely different route. But in those 3 years from me starting Dog Bowl, I took it's weird. I took a shorter route to a better career by going the long way. So I think there's another art. I think when people say, well, like if an actor says, I'm getting paid $100 a day to be in this like movie that I don't think is very good, but at least I'm getting paid, and I'm getting $100 a day or $200 a day for 3 weeks, instead of maybe not doing that and searching for something that's like holding out until something better shows up. Because if you're if you crowd all your space out, like how is that a long game approach? That's what I don't think, that writing a movie that no one's going to see is not, and just cash, because the money's going to disappear. So how are you developing your career that way?
Yeah. Well, I think there's I think there's some valid points in that. And then it's a rough business from top to bottom. I've had people on the podcast that are making a living doing exactly this. I mean, some of these movies are being made for $1 million, $2 million. A screenwriter can make $30,000, $60,000. You can sell a few of these. You can actually scratch out a living. And there's people writing Lifetime movies, writing these AFM movies. I mean, some of these AFM movies are $2, $3, $4, $5 million. So the writer, it might be getting, a couple. Right. So there is.
I think that's the difference. It's like, it's sort of like when you look at Craig Mazin and John August's like point of view, or their credentials or whatever, they've made money in the studio system. That's basically their Craig Mazin's credentials are, he's made a ton of money in the studio system as a writer. And my whole thing is I want to help you write a classic movie. Those are two different things. Those are not the same thing. Like, gaming and working the system to make a shit ton of money is one thing. And there is a route, and there's a labyrinth, and there's a network, and there's things that you can do to do that. But ultimately, it's my belief that, like, that's not, like, people that get there, I mean, if that's what you want, if it's like if you want to get money as a writer, and it doesn't, and you don't care if nobody likes your movie, or nobody sees your movie, or you don't like your movie, and you don't care about that as much as I pay a mortgage. Like, some people are like, that's exactly what I want. I want to make money. I want Craig Mazin's job. Well, I don't want Craig Mazin's job because I don't want to do that. I want because I know that ultimately I will be provided for with resources and money and everything else. If it will all come, it doesn't matter. If I chase a gratifying body of work, I'm still probably going to make some money. You know what I mean? And that's what's happening. And so I think that's the difference. It's sort of like, and I think what gets confusing is the John August, Craig Mazin podcast, that sort of like thing is not really ultimately about writing an emotionally compelling, classic, great, culture shifting movie. It's not about that. It's about making money as a screenwriter. And everyone goes, well, duh. Isn't that, yeah, that's what I want to do. But the fact is that that's not what I ever talk about. That's not what Blue Cat's about. That's not what Dog Bowl, I set out, I was like, I'm going to make something that's professional as a short film, but I'm going to make something that's good. And I'm just going to make good things, you know? And I can't really, you know, reveal necessarily where my assignment is right now, but it's a big assignment, and I got it because of my adherence to that sort of quality control, I think. And just being like, I want to do the right, compelling work, and the rest will take care of itself. So I get the bonus of, you know, screening my movie at the LA Shorts Fest on Monday night and having the audience, like having one of our most responsive audiences. They were just totally laughing and enjoying the movie. And you can't put a price on that. You know what I mean? Like if you can keep your $40,000 for that movie that is going to end up, sort of a VOD thing over in Asia. You know what I mean? And that you're never going to meet your audience. No one's ever going to slap you on the back. No one's ever going to go, I thought that was beautiful. And that might happen. I'm not saying it's that black and white. And I don't mean to be so didactic about it. I just feel like there's another, like, I feel like writing the best movie might in the long run be better for your career and the bottom line in your bank account. You know, then, I mean, my brother's career is a perfect example of like turning down things early, you know, turning down Billy Madison and stuff like that when he was like in his 20s and turning down money that a lot of other actors take and go, yeah, and they go forward and then they sputter out. And he made different choices. And then everybody wanted to work for him. And so he was completely commodifiable. You know, that's probably, I don't know if that's a word, but he was able to monetize, completely. I mean, he had to beat them off with a stick. We know the story. Mm-hmm. I mean, but the fact is that early on he was saying no to things that so that he could sort of keep his, kind of eye on like, I want to make work that is making me comfortable. So, and ultimately it worked out. It wasn't actually bad business decision making. I mean, I think that's what gets confusing for people. People think like, oh, you get all artsy or whatever, and it's like you're going to be poor. And well, tell that to the Coen brothers, Soderbergh, on and on and on. Even Robert Downey, it's like at some point he said, well, he was picked, to kind of advance those things. Johnny Depp, they were picked because people were like, these guys are really good. Leo, these guys are really good. And then they put them in the middle of franchises and look what happened, because of the fact that they have always sort of tried to chase good work and not necessarily be like, okay, let me take the shortcut to like the more zeros at the end of the check. So yeah. So I just think there's a balance,
Yeah. And I want to push back a couple of things. Number one, when I set out to write these movies, I have high hopes, man. I go into it. I don't set out to write a mediocre movie. Like I'll take whatever material I'm working on and I try and make it as good as possible. And I have high hopes. And there's some history of this actually working for people like Christopher Nolan. I mean, I saw a movie on Netflix a couple of years ago. I think it was called Following or The Following or something. And it was a really low budget thriller that Christopher Nolan did early on in his career. And it was like really, really good. So some of these, schlocky genre movies become elevated. Like if you're talented, they can work and they can be good. And the other thing is, while maybe the world at large doesn't see a lot of these schlocky low budget movies, people in town do see them. And, people in town, the ones that are kind of halfway decent, you do run into people that have seen your movies, just because we're in the industry. And so there is some value on that. But my main point, I think this is the one thing that a lot of people, maybe they disagree with me or maybe they haven't accepted. Like, I've kind of accepted the fact that I'm not a gloriously gifted writer. And I don't think I have just the tools to write the great script, but I've succeeded and sold a bunch of scripts because, again, I've been very pragmatic in what I'm writing, and I'm not shooting for that studio level thing. And here's why I think it, and I think most people listening to this, even if they don't want to admit it to themselves, are probably in that boat. They're probably people more like me. They're not gloriously gifted. And so the chances of ever getting to that Craig Mazin, John Hawkes level is very, very slim. And truthfully, I think to get to that level, there's a certain amount of luck that is involved in that equation. And you can't really engineer the luck. And as an example, my cousin came out here to be a screenwriter. He went to Dartmouth, and I say that only just, he's a really smart guy. He went to Columbia, ended up going to Columbia Law School. He's a really smart guy. He came out here. He wrote what I consider to be a really good script. He wrote some TV stuff, wrote a really good feature script. He was out here for 2 or 3 years. He was doing all the typical stuff, but he was writing stuff that was big studio projects. He had no success, and then he just went back to law school. Now he's a successful lawyer. And I think that there's a lot of people, like if he'd have gotten one of these low-budget credits, that would have been, and yes, he wouldn't have gotten rich on it, but if he'd have gotten some of those low budget credits that are fairly easy to get if you're smart about it, it might have been enough to keep him interested in a career in screenwriting. And I think getting some of those early wins, as I said, can be so valuable. And that's kind of what happened to me. Like I sold my first script. I was out here for about 3 years. If I hadn't sold that script, I might have been that guy going back to law school and just kind of throwing in the towel or going back home. I'm from Maryland originally. I might have gone back to Maryland, but I got that option and the script, and I did it. It was just pure happenstance. There was a lot of strippers in the script. It was kind of one of those rollicking, naked girl scripts. And me and my buddy that wrote it just thought it was funny. And but there was a market for scripts. Little did we know. And there was a market for scripts that, with strippers and hot girls in it. And so we got that first win, and it opened up, it made me feel like, yeah, I can really do this. And that kept me going. It kept me at the thing. My cousin, he didn't get that first win. He was writing these studio films, and I just fear people will come out here, they'll spend 2 or 3 years, they won't have any success, and then they'll pack it in. But there's got to be a lot of people like my cousin that are smart, talented writers, but they just packed it in and went away because they didn't get those first wins. They didn't get any kind of gratitude.
They left, okay? It's not, this idea that there's external forces. I mean, if you quit, you quit. If you go home, you go home. I mean, it's not because the industry did something and it's like some sort of weird equation or whatever. It's like you didn't hang in there. Your friend, had another narrative in his head that he had a plan B. And there's, it's like people that are successful, Ron Howard, anybody you want to talk about, they don't have plan Bs. There's no because everybody goes through intense challenges and stretches and career collapses and all sorts of peaks and valleys and real challenges, dud films that they're involved with, like blowouts, whatever. I mean, look at Ben Affleck's career. I mean, it's like he went from he won an Oscar, laughing stock, sort of like almost like fringy, felt like, okay, this guy has sort of blown his capital as an A-list actor. And then all of a sudden it's like this weird, this awesome directorial comeback. And now he's a monster in the industry right now. He's right in the middle of 3 tentpoles for Warner Brothers. So you don't think that at some point in this kid's the last 20 years, he hasn't been like, holy shit, I might be done. I might be on I think I might have to do a television show, or something. I don't know if I'm not going to be a $20 million man ever again. I mean, honestly, but if you leave because you're like, I honestly don't think it's like, well, if he had done some movie, I think I know what you're saying, and everybody's got their own path, and I definitely don't want to get all. You can't. You can make it. You can make it work. You can make it work. I just I focus on writing I focus on writing an emotionally compelling script. I know, and I don't necessarily. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's I don't know. I think people want different things, as screenwriters, and I think that that's just it is. I don't think everybody wants the same job, you know, and that's why there's definitely people will be like, will think I'm crazy for like, you know, being like, of course I want to make, you know, and it's like, I just know that that's not going to be enough for me. As like, I actually want to make something that people, like I've made things that people come up to me and write letters to me, and, you know, and that is to me. And so I've gotten paid, and I've had the kid write me a letter saying I was suicidal until I watched, you know, until I watched Love Liza. So here's the letter that's on my bulletin board from a high school kid. And I watched the film in a film studies class, and it stuck with me. It helped me gain a lot of perspective with my own struggles with suicide, the pain and emotional torrent that is just beginning for those left behind. I have this Spanish-style poster for the film on my wall. It remains as one of the most beautiful posters I have.
That is compelling stuff.
So like, what do you want? Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, the money for Love Liza was spent, you know, I was probably one of the patrons in that stripper movie. You know what I mean? It's been long gone. It was gone. It was like, you know, so it was spent before, it was probably gone before 9/11. You know what I mean? But that letter came last year. That's not an old letter. So so I still get people coming up to me and go, "You wrote Love Liza?" And so I guess that's my perspective. And that's why I kind of try to pitch that to people and say, it's my experience that the value from writing, you know, the inherent profit, life profit, it's more profitable to try and dig a little deeper and go for that and in the way that you're talking about. But it's okay. It's also awesome to like write a movie and have fun with your partner and I mean that's can't be bad. It's just that what about career development? Like, where are you? I mean, when you're talking about Christopher Nolan, whatever the following was never sent out. I don't think he ever made the following as like, I don't know if that's a good example. It's just in short, because he made Memento, and Memento's it wasn't like a Rodriguez thing where he's like, I'm just going to make this movie and sell it so that I can make more money and make another one. You know, it's different. You know, both of those guys are coming from the same place, that the aspirations were still large for both of them, you know, and, but I really agree with everything you're saying. We're kind of talking about two things, and I think people should hang in there, look for different opportunities, like you said, to write. Like, there's other places where you might be able to write something that you never thought that you could write, and make a little extra dough, and might create more space and allow you to write that personal film that you want, because you got like, you know, $40,000 to make some, you know, $2 million genre picture or whatever. Mm-hmm. But also think about, like, where's your career going, and how are you going to make space for what you really want to do? Because I think you and everybody else wants to, the dream is to write a classic film. You know, absolutely. You know, right. I mean, and we want, every writer wants to win an Academy Award for writing, and wants accolades, but more importantly wants what that letter on the wall represents to me. You know, it's like it's priceless. So it's like, that is the highest form of gratification from writing, is what you can mean for your audience, and how you allow your audience to better articulate, you know, the struggle of life and the beauty of life. And if that can happen, you know, it's like, you know, it might not be as great as the strippers in your, you know, that sounds like a great movie. Send me that link. I'd like to see that. I can't, nobody wants to hire me to write that. They always want me to, you know, I don't know, write something else. But
yeah, well, you get the career that you make for yourself, and you wrote Love Liza, so no one's going to hire you to write a stripper movie. So,
yeah, except they would, but she would have to be completely despondent and like exactly, at the end of her shift or something. You know?
The wrestler had strippers in it, so there you go.
Yeah, the wrestler was great, and but yeah, so we're saying the same things. I just want it, I definitely don't want to come across as like right and wrong, because there's all these paths. But the one thing I do want to emphasize is take responsibility, for your career. Don't think like, oh, that's why. And then I went to law school. It's like, no way. It's like you made that choice. You're the one that changed your career. I mean, he might have struggled and said, this isn't practical for me. And it wasn't his cup of tea, but it's very competitive. I mean, it's like people that are in the National Football League, people that are in the NBA, the women at the US Open this week. I mean, there's no quitting those people. I mean, they have walked through unbelievable stuff to get to where they are, to elevate themselves. And that's the only way. Guys on the PGA Tour, that kind of stuff. And again, I'm not sure I completely agree with that. And I think, and again, I totally get what you're saying about John August and Craig Mazin, but listening to their podcast, there wasn't a lot of struggle in their career. And I think those guys are prime examples. Craig Mazin going to Princeton, he probably did have a plan B. He's exactly like my cousin, but for whatever reason, he was in the right place, the right time. He sold some scripts, and so his career took off. There's definitely always luck, or things happen in life, but you have to be present for those. Your friend left early. He chose to leave before the door opened. He wasn't there. The door opened for your friend, but he was back in law school. I mean, that's the point. There isn't some like outside force that, I mean, to say, you can say a lot of things, Craig Mazin, John August, those guys are hard workers. And to say that they sort of, that because Craig went to Princeton and he lucked out, or whatever, it's like
no, I'm not implying that at all. I'm just saying my cousin went to Dartmouth, also an Ivy League school, so his trajectory was similar to Craig's, but he went one way and then Craig went another way.
To say that it's luck that Craig is where he's at and your friend went to law school, that's like putting too much stock in the fate of the stars or something, when it's really it's the person making the choice. The person, I don't know. People take themselves out of the industry. I mean, the fact is that your friend left, and it's not because, and Craig's not a successful screenwriter because, and a successful, filmmaker because of luck.
But would he struggle?
The same luck was waiting for your friend, but your friend left.
Yeah, but
I left, I mean, go ahead.
Would have Craig stuck it out for 10 years, 15 years, grinding it out? Listening to his I don't know the guy, so I don't know. But listening to his podcast, I don't know that he would have stuck it out. I think John August has all these skills, technical skills, he's creating software and stuff. Would John August have stuck it out? If things hadn't broke his way, would he stuck it out and ground out for 10 years? I don't think so. I think he probably would have been a successful app developer or successful, running some sort of tech company. He would have, those guys they're exactly what you're saying. They're smart and they're hardworking. So other opportunities would have come their way. And at some point they would have just said, this is a much better opportunity. And here's the other thing that I wrestle with this as I interviewed screenwriters on the podcast. The most successful screenwriters I've interviewed, Doug Richardson wrote Bad Boys and Die Hard 2. I interviewed Mark Lawrence, who wrote Miss Congeniality. There wasn't a lot of struggle in their stories. Things pretty much took off pretty simply. And the one exception, John Jarrell, who wrote Romeo Must Die, like he's the one, I would say, sort of studio level screenwriter that I've interviewed that had a lot of struggle in his story. But most of these guys, and I put Craig Mazin and John August in this, there wasn't a lot of struggle in their story. And I don't have like a completed thought.
I wouldn't want to put you in a room with those four dudes and say, you didn't struggle. You're going to look at those guys and say, you didn't struggle?
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
crazy, man. Those guys are all grinders. They wrote so much beyond like most of the people that are listening to this podcast can't even think about writing as much as those guys did before they ever got like made it. The amount of work and the amount of rewriting and the dues paying and the grinding that's not my experience. I'm friends with Jason Hall. He wrote, American Sniper. He was nominated for an Oscar. It's like I know Craig Borton, who wrote, he wrote the picture Dallas Buyers Club, and that was you should interview him. I mean, these guys, nobody that I know. The guy, my friend just texted me now. He wrote Ice Age 2. You know how much work that guy puts in and what he was doing? He had no life, like writing specs. Now he's at UTA. He's got a full career. He has a house in the hills. He has the whole thing that anybody would ever want. Mm-hmm. He just bought a Tesla. I mean, all the cliche things, and it's all from screenwriting. And that guy, Jim Hecht, is one of the hardest working writers. He's a grinder. Jason Hall went to Insomnia forever. He still goes to Insomnia, and he's nominated for an Oscar, and he's like, he worked his butt off to get there. This idea that you're going to like say these guys didn't struggle, I'm just telling you, I would not want to. Maybe they didn't struggle, but I sure as hell would not want to tell them that, because I don't think that they would respond. They would be like, are you crazy? So that's not my experience, man. It's like, I mean, I know that I have a very good job right now and it's a job that I think like many people would want. It's sort of like a job that I think everybody sort of aspires to. And I had to struggle to get there. I struggled my ass off. I mean, I've worked really hard, but I think but that's not me. I think that's common. So I think you got to temper. I honestly think that it's like that just says that basically the people that have made it are lucky, and the people that don't.
No. And I don't want to make it seem like that. I think the people, for the most part, and Craig Mazin and John August, who have had extended careers, they're not lucky. They're incredibly talented, and they're born with incredible talent. And so there is some luck to the equation. And that's what I'm saying. I think for myself, I don't think I have that as much talent as them. And so that's, I think, the differentiating thing. But as I said, and it's good to hear what you're saying, because I definitely appreciate hard work, and there's no, I mean, the hard work is definitely so.
I think that people can be gifted, and there's people that have large gifts that don't like work hard, and they leave town and stuff. And then there's people that are maybe less gifted or whatever. I mean, like measuring gift, again, I just don't think it's like a measure. Well, they're talented, that they made it. I'm not that talented, and I don't think so. I think that maybe it's just, I think there's a combination of all those things, but I think people obviously have to have a knack for things, and then you have to kind of hang in there and work really hard, like Larry Bird did and Michael Jordan did, and Cal Ripken, you know what I mean? People like that were like J.J. Watt. I mean, those guys are gifted. J.J. Watt is gifted. He's gifted because he's massive. So he wasn't born a 5'4". He's a massive dude, and he's obviously physically gifted. So he's gotten something that he didn't have to earn. He just was handed. But beyond that, the guy works his friggin' butt off. That guy works so hard. And he got, like, there was breaks along the way. I'm sure his story, he's like, well, yeah, I mean, I got really lucky because I got transferred to this one high school, and this guy was a really great coach, and he had all the eyes of all the recruits and blah, 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 blah. So there's always what you're talking about, the luck part of it. And then there's the gift part of it. But then there's the friggin', the fact that he can't eat pancakes until he retires part of it. And things like that are just like, and the amount of work that goes into it, it's mind-boggling how hard they work, harder than everybody else. So that's something. And the thing is that that's the stuff you can have control over. That's the thing that you can control what you're writing. You can control how much you write. You can control what you pick to work on and your habits and everything else. That you can't control luck, and you can't control whatever the gift you were given by whatever talent you're imbued with or endowed with. But you can control how hard you work. And I think that is ultimately the defining and the sort of that sense of fight in you. And I think that's what it is. I think John August, going back to those guys, I think they have fight. You would never ever say like, well, luck meant more than fight with you guys. It's like, no way. I think that there was definitely, you got to interview those guys. That would be a great follow up. You see if you could get Craig Mazin. This would be I think this would be a great conversation, the conversation of luck, fight, and skill. And what's going on? It'd probably be a very lively conversation.
Yeah.
Imagine.
So, well, all you're saying, I think we're basically in agreement.
I think there's probably, I think everybody, yeah. So I think it's all good. I think in the end we're going towards the same place. So, anyways, I know you wanted to talk about Dog Bowl.
Yeah, let's definitely
rambling on.
Let's get in. Yeah, no, that's good. That was a good conversation. Let's get into Dog Bowl a little bit. Maybe you can just give us a quick log line, kind of pitch us what it's about, and I will link to the trailer, and then we'll dig into some of the specifics of kind of how you made that happen.
Yeah. Well, Dog Bowl is about a girl who steals a vest. She's a sort of a heartbroken, emotionally lost young woman who steals a vest impulsively off of a service dog. It sort of runs away with it. And then it sets off this domino of this trail of self-realization about her identity and her place in the world. And that's sort of a good little synopsis of it. And, it's basically started from this idea of like a girl stealing a vest off of a service dog and running away, and that sort of image in my head. And I went from there. And it's been a long journey.
Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning. Why did you decide to do this film? I mean, you've already done some features. Why did you decide, hey, a short would be the right project for me now?
I directed a handheld point of view feature about a bachelorette party that goes AWire, and it was pretty down and dirty, early day, sort of semi-early days of digital, and it just didn't have a very commercial look. Obviously, it was a different kind of a texture to it. And I knew that if it didn't hold a lot of currency, I with people wanting to like make a feature. So I thought, I really don't have a short that is a commercial, tight, polished looking narrative short. And, I thought, I should get something like that and use it as a calling card, and that's sort of were the professional goals. And so I set out. I hadn't written the script yet when I set up the Kickstarter. I wanted to raise, about $7,000, $10,000. I ended up raising $23,000 on that first Kickstarter. So I went like over 200% of my goal, and that made me really pause and say, wow, I need to really make a great movie with this, or like every single person that's known me from grade school are going to be like, why did we give you money? And I was like really on the spot, which is great about Kickstarter campaigns. It's like, probably the greatest thing about Kickstarter campaigns is they're on the internet forever. So you better get your goal, and you better make your movie, or you're going to have something on the internet, something in Google search with your name on it that's going to be like wah wah. If you don't close the deal, man, you're screwed. And people are going to be looking at that like, oh, looks like he did a Kickstarter campaign 7 years ago and only got 17%. It's like, oh. So, so I got that money, and I was like, I need to write something really good. And I took it, and I just really was patient. I kind of got it to a level where I was like, okay, this is sort of an indie kind of thing. And but then I was like, this is not really going to serve your purpose. This is not going to, like, people isn't going to really stick in people's minds. You really, so I just hung in there and I just did due diligence with the script and with every other component with the DP. I wanted something really professional. So I needed strong act. I did all the stuff that you need to do sort of, over the biggest thing is patience. I think people are impatient. People want their scripts to be done. They want, oh, I'm shooting this. And I'm like, well, why don't you take another 9 months and get better prepared? What's the point? Like if you're going to find yourself back in the same place in a year and a half, if you take a longer time, it's actually the shortest route to like advancing everything, because I did take like almost 2 years to go from pretty much the whole Dog Bowl journey. And that's seems like a long time for a short film. Well, now it doesn't, because it got into Sundance and it went, we're going to Fantastic Fest in Austin and we're going to Rain Dance in London. It was at the LA Film Festival. And it not only gave me currency with feature film producers that already are like wanted, but I also got this writing assignment principally from Dog Bowl because a director saw it and then put 2 and 2 together and said, well, maybe he could do this. And then I came into the company and pitched them, and suddenly I'm doing this thing, and it's really rooted. If Dog Bowl doesn't exist, this job doesn't exist. So
let's take a step back. Let me take a step back into the Kickstarter campaign. So how did you actually get eyeballs? That's always the first, kind of thing. What did you do to prepare for the Kickstarter? And then ultimately, what did you do to just drive traffic to it?
Basically stay alive and you get old. And then you sort of know so many people that you're like, I feel bad for people that are like 28 years old doing Kickstarter because they basically have so many people in their lives, and you've got a generation of people from college and high school, and none of your friends really have a lot of money yet. So it's like your dad, your mom, whatever, But like I was like in my late 40s when I was doing my Kickstarter, so it was I sort of was like, it was sort of nice because I have all my friends that went to high school have raised families and they have successful careers and they, and so there was a lot of help from people. I don't know if I needed a lot. I knew, and just because over the years I'd met a lot of people, they say to have 1,000 friends on Facebook, and I have, because of Blue Cat, I know a lot of people. I teach a lot. So my former students I had a woman who I taught at USC. She gave me $1,000, and it was like amazing. It was like, wow. And so things like that, I had a lot of people. So, I think you want to, there's a lot of different ways, but you just want to make a way, I think you want your Kickstarter page, your Kickstarter video, and there's a lot of different things that I believe will make your Kickstarter successful. But what I did with my original Kickstarter page was remind people of who I am and why they like me and why I'm funny and talented. And I try to remind people of that and be like, oh, go Gordy. And that is something that if you can just think about that, like remind people of like who you are. If principally your funding is going to come from your family and friends and your social networks, people whatever. And, but that's in terms of eyeballs. I didn't really do a campaign where there were some random people that found it, and definitely some people that found it and donated. But the campaign was driven simply by my own sort of all my different communities, Blue Cat, my screenwriting teaching career, the fact that, over the years, you obviously you meet a lot of people and So,
what does that actually look like in terms of you? So you're saying you've got this network of people. Did you send personalized emails? Hey, Joe, remember me? We were on the football team together. Did you send custom emails to people from high school? Did you just send out pat emails? What did that actually look like?
I mean, definitely I posted on Facebook and I announced it on Facebook, and that obviously Facebook is very helpful, in terms of getting it out there. And, you're supposed to send 3 emails. You're supposed to send an email sort of at the beginning saying this is going to start, and then maybe an email on the day it starts. And I did that. I sent an email out to like every email address I had, and just said, I'm doing this. And then, you get a really big flush of money at the beginning. And then, you do one in the middle, and then you do one at the end. That's just sort of the rule. I don't think I really sent out, I don't know if I sent out an email until like halfway through, like the actual first email came a little late, so I didn't do it. But that's sort of the rule is you let people know it's going to happen in advance, like maybe a week in advance, and then you say, here's the day. And then you get a nice little bump. And, but, again, it's, I think there's other things that come into play. I think eyeballs aren't necessarily the key. The key was I had a lot of rewards. I think people their rewards are often the problem. I often go to Kickstarter pages and go, like why, like you don't have a lot of stuff, and the stuff you're giving is like we have to give $200 to get something that's sort of cool. Like you're not giving anything that's really cool until a lot of money's given, and then it's not even that. Like you're asking me to give you $200 for a Blu-ray or something, and it's like, okay, I want the Blu-ray, but $200, So rewards, I think a lot of people get a little scared about. They think, oh, that's a lot of rewards, but actually, why not give them? I mean, you don't want to give them too many choices because that does get overwhelming. But, giving a lot of different ways to kind of get in there. And then I wrote all the rewards, and the rewards were funny and they were creative. And there's ways for people that have $10 and $15 and $25 and $35 and $50 to give and to get into the thing. If people have questions, they can go. You might want to link my Kickstarter campaigns too, because I think that you can see what rewards people responded to and what rewards they didn't respond to, and you can see the sort of thought process I had of like, how do I get people connected to the making of the movie? If we're talking about, I'm not talking about making a movie or make a Kickstarter for a short or feature. How do you get people involved, and how other people did get responded to it? So I think that the rewards is often a problem. The videos are too long. Oftentimes the video, my video was like 90 seconds, and I would probably make it like a minute, a minute, you want to be really creative. A lot of people get on, well, this is my thing. And who wants to watch a 4-minute pitch video? And they're all that long. They're always 3 minutes or 4 minutes long, and nobody wants to watch those things. Who watches those things? But if they look at it and they go, oh, this is only 1 minute and 20 seconds, and then they just watch it, and then you just kind of get it done, and you do something creative, and and I think that was key for me. Is I didn't do a lot of research on how to do the campaign. The one thing I did read that was so helpful was these guys that we watched pitch videos for 6 months trying to perfect, make the greatest pitch video. And we realized we needed to make it short, and our pitch video was 90 seconds. And we said that after we were done, the one thing we regretted was we should have made it shorter. And when I read that, I was like, oh. And so I was like, my video is going to be 1 minute. I just read that. It made a lot of sense. And I was like, and I think that people can watch my thing, and they watched it. And so the video was short and easily digestible. It reminded people of who I was and why I might be special or why I should be doing this. And then I had and it doesn't really matter like they can read about it. But again, people write like huge like descriptions of the project. Who reads that stuff on their phone? They're going to read like this whole thing. It's just, you want to put this stuff in there so that you've got you don't want to have nothing there.
Yeah. Let me ask you about a couple of your
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you about a couple of the rewards that I noticed. One of them, I'm always curious. I always feel like people are stingy with the digital downloads. And you had I think it was $25 was to get the digital download. Why not make that cheaper? Like it seems to me, especially for a short, like you can go on iTunes and you get a digital download of a studio movie for $12. So why not make the digital download like $10 or $12?
Well, it's because it's inherent in the Kickstarter crowdsourcing principle of you're not really, if you're paying $40 for a t-shirt, that's too much, right? But what it is like you're giving $40 to the making of the movie, and the t-shirt is an incentive like thing. So yes, $25 to when Dog Bowl goes live on the website, it's going to be, $2.99 or something like that, right? But we're making the movie. So we say you donate $25 to us and you get the digital download. It's not really like, do you know what I mean? It's not like you're buying something at Target or whatever. It's not the right price. It's implicit in that $25 that there's a donation going because honestly, you have like with the t-shirts, I think our t-shirts were like $50 or $45. How much were the t-shirts though? That wasn't like 50. Yeah. So it's like, because you have to pay for the t-shirt. Like we had hoodies that were $50 or something like that. And our t-shirts are $50, and the t-shirts, because we have to ship them, we have to make them. So if you want to have any money extra for the production of the movie, you have to charge more. So that's why it's more. But I'm telling you, the rewards is a huge issue. I see that all the time because obviously people send me their Kickstarters to donate a lot, and also just like some people ask me for advice and stuff because I had success, and but that's one of the things I often see. I'm like, why are you being so stingy with the reward? Why are you not giving them anything? I sold executive producer credits. I sold associate producer credits. I sold co-producer credits. I was like, I don't have to hold on to those, and I was able to be like, those are $500 or $400 or whatever, $2,000. And I didn't have to, and they didn't, my Dog Bowl is not, I didn't have a reward in Dog Bowl. I would rather have five, I had like 5 executive producers or something like that listed. Most of them were, almost all of them were Kickstarter Kickstarter backers. And my credits of my movie don't look like, there's the big list of Kickstarter people, because that wasn't one of my rewards. My reward wasn't give me $50, I'll put your name in the thank you credits, because I didn't want that in my movie. I wanted a clean credits. I wanted something that looked I didn't want to remind people like, oh, amateur film or whatever. I didn't want to connote anything like that. But I definitely wasn't all covetous of producer credits and all these various credits that PA credits. There was the second Kickstarter that I did for post-production. I think I sold production assistant credits for $250. And Stephen Adley Girgis, who just won the Pulitzer Prize for drama, is one of the PAs on Dog Bowl. And I've had at least one person go, Stephen Adley Girgis was a PA on your movie? And it's like, no, he just gave money. But he was the first backer on my thing. But it's just funny but there he is listed, and there was and it was a way for a creative way for people to get involved, and they're credited in the movie. I had one person who wanted to be credited as the post-production supervisor, and they literally bought the credit because they wanted that on their IMDb page, and they were like vigilant about like, when's it going to be on, because they were literally buying like a credit to put on IMDb to help them with whatever they were doing, and it was like, okay, so yeah, be really creative and really
How did you come up with the idea? I noticed there was a lot of them that were like, hey, if you want to anonymously give, like that's totally counterintuitive. And so where did you come up with the idea to just allow people to anonymously give without getting a credit or really getting any of the rewards?
Because there's people out there that will do that. There's those angel people that are like, there's just people that they don't really care. They don't want anything. They just want to help you. And sometimes those worked and sometimes they did, or they wasn't like, I didn't sell out of those, but it gave people that wanted to give like $2,000 or $1,500. You just called them like an angel investor, so to speak. And, and you were like, you can get stuff or not. And because a lot of people don't care about getting, like when I give, most of the time I'm like, I'm not really waiting for you to send me the zip load of digital stills from your movie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I just looked and said, I'll give you $50. I'll give you $75. I'll give you $100, or I'll give you $10, whatever, and that's you just look numerically, but people do, but other people look at it differently. But that's why, I just really encourage. I spent the most time on my Kickstarter page on the rewards. Like, you make that short little video, make it unique, short. You write up your little thing. You do your write-up, just make it clean and short. And then the rewards was where I was like playing with the prices and being like, well, maybe that should be 35. And I really spent time with that. And I just look at campaigns that's where they're losing, because there's so many people that they probably would give, but they can't. And they say that's another thing, is they say that the common donation, they're the most donate. I mean, it wasn't like the most donations for Kickstarter were like $25, weren't they, Olivia? Those were like the highest ones, were the people, that was the most popular ones. And you know what? If you sell 17 of them, that adds up, and they're just,
Yeah. So, okay, well, that's great advice. As I said, I'm going to be launching a Kickstarter campaign, so maybe I'll come back with some more questions here in the near future. So let's talk about the Blue Cat screenwriting competition. I get this question all the time. People are just coming to me, hey, should I enter this contest? Should I enter that contest? I wonder, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your contest and what differentiates it from the other contests out there.
Well, Blue Cat is probably the only, I'm not sure, but it's the only competition where you can actually listen to the judge of the competition talk about screenwriting. And you can actually watch a video of me. You can watch 50 videos of me talking about screenwriting. And so if you listen to one of my videos and you're like, that guy doesn't know anything about making movies, then you don't have to enter. But basically, you can watch my videos and say, okay, so the judge is actually an authority on screenwriting. And I also have a track record. I've taught at USC. I've taught at UCLA. I mean, my bio, you know who the judge is. My picture is on the website. I have pictures everywhere. I'm the face of Blue Cat. So that, you don't find that with even the other major competitions. I mean, the people that run them are sort of out there. They're not like hiding or anything, but are they experts? Are they writers? Like, I'm a writer. I'm a professional writer, so so all those things that separates. And Blue Cat was one of the earliest competitions to give written feedback as a part of our entry. And I think that, I think most people would agree that our feedback is probably the best because we've been doing it. We have gone through a lot to work out all the kinks, develop a reader pool, and hire those readers meticulously, and just keep improving that system. And we've been doing it for 15 years now. So that's why we get a lot of compliments on our feedback, and we get very few complaints. And people, that's our growth. Our brand is that we are there for the writer. We're there for your development, and we give you written feedback, real feedback on your movie that you've submitted to us, and everybody gets that as part of their entry fee. And I think that's what separates us. I mean, I think we give big cash prizes. We hook people up with our winner this year got signed, at industry, got a manager, went out on a slew of meetings. It all happened because she won and industry read her script, and she had other people coming after her and she went with them. So she's all, and that all, so we do all that, but, Austin does that and Nichols. And so, but I think the thing that separates Blue Cat is, I think the confidence that you can have knowing that at least you know who is, I hire the readers, I handle the adjudication directly, and I'm the final say and I'm the judge. So that alone, I think, it gives people confidence. A lot of people do enter Blue Cat and don't enter anybody else because of that, because they just like watch a video of mine and go, okay, I agree with what he's saying about that particular element or principle of screenwriting. And so I don't feel like I'm just throwing my money out in the ether, my submission fee out in the ether, never knowing what's going to happen. And then, because of the feedback that comes with every entry, what happened. It's not like you enter, there's, again, with other competitions, you might get a vague sense of what it is, and other ones you never know at all. You never know at all. What does that feedback look like? Does the reader give like a pass, consider, recommend? Is there like strengths and weaknesses? It's more like an internal like conversation you would have with like maybe a colleague, where we tell you what we think is working, what we don't, what we think needs more work, and that's it. Just sort of about roughly 500 or 600 words on those two questions, and that's it. We don't do any kind of like coveragey thing to make you feel like, delude you into thinking that something professional happened. It's us having a development conversation with you, and the other thing, because of that feedback, and I think this is another reason why we continue to grow and people continue to come back to us every year, is because people know we read your entire script. That's the other thing that people really like about Blue Cat, is like, they read my whole script. There was actually a person that read my script. And it's always unsettling when something comes back, no matter what, like a film festival or something, you're like, you don't even know if they watched your film. Like, I don't know, did they watch all of so I think that's the other thing, but that's what the feedback looks like. And like I said, we rely on our entrants to let us know if a reader is like, hey, this reader ABC, and and our staff will look at that complaint and sort of, and it's been helpful over the years, because sometimes a reader maybe gets tired, has a bad day, or just burns out or something, and it starts getting really nasty or something like that, or sloppy, and the entrant will point it out to us, and then we'll be like, we'll make a correction, so that's the readers. I think we have a lot of entrants that they all talk, the screenwriters, they let each other know, and they compare notes and stuff, especially with competitions. And so we have built it on our performance, and we focus on delivering that performance as opposed to other ways to get entries. We've always been like, let's just read the scripts carefully and judge a good competition. And by doing so, we get really strong winners, and then those winners and finalists go on to have like special things happen career-wise, and that always reflects back on us.
Sure. So maybe you can tell us just about some of the dates. Is it once a year you collect the scripts, and when does that roughly take place, or is there multiple entry dates?
Yeah. Well, there's always, like Sundance or like Nichols or whatever, anybody else. There's a couple different times you can submit, and we have our regular deadlines October 15th. So that's about a month away, and if you enter by October 15th, you get your feedback back early. You get it back in early November. So that's like sort of the last time. After that, you're going to get it at your normal time. But our final deadline is November 15th, and we have a feature prize of $15,000, and we accept shorts as well. This is our third year of accepting shorts, and our shorts prize is $10,000.
Wow.
And so we give, nice, sexy, money prizes and stuff, but more importantly, we give you a platform to give you a little deadline to work on your movie. And we also give you some feedback so that you can work on. A lot of people, we moved our deadline a few years ago to the fall, and a lot of people use Blue Cat. I'll write my first draft, I'll enter Blue Cat, I'll see how I do, I'll get the feedback, then I'll rewrite it and I'll send it to Austin and Nichols in the spring, and Sundance, and basically all the rest of them in the spring. And then we have had a lot people use it to develop their work, and that's really that is what again, it's kind of like the populist. It feels better. It's nice. We do help those people that are come out on top, and then we have fun with that, and we help them. But overall, because of the feedback the analysis that we give out to everybody, we're able to support everybody. November 15th is the final deadline, but October 15th, if you submit by October 15th, you also there's a price break too. I think the fee goes up after the final deadline is sort of our most expensive, but earlier in the summer it's obviously leaked, just like just like Nichols and Sundance and Austin and stuff. So.
Perfect. Yeah. So what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? You can mention your Twitter handle. I'll link to everything in the show notes, your Facebook page, maybe a blog. Definitely mention the Blue Cat website.
Yeah. We have our Twitter account is very active. Our Facebook account, of course, is we have a Facebook page, and we're also on Instagram. We're pretty fluent, in social media. Twitter account is great because Twitter will remind you and link to our blog. We have a very active blog. We have a lot of original content. Last year we interviewed, one of the writers of Birdman, before they were ever nominated. And it was an exclusive interview that Blue Cat had with one of the writers of Birdman. So that stuff ends up on our blog, so that's good. But the most important thing is that you should go to the website and sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter has all the content that we post in the blog. We have free script downloads. We have links to, your podcast and, things that, so it's a very useful tool. And for many years, people, it's just within our sort of mission to continue to support people that the newsletter is. So if you go to our website, there's a box that shows up and you can just opt in, and it's a free, obviously, newsletter, and comes out weekly on Tuesdays. And that has a lot. People love the newsletter because there's just things in there, interesting blogs, always a script download. People rely on our scripts. They go in and they go, oh, that script, and they just, and they download it, especially around award season. We have a ton of them. So yeah, the newsletter is probably the primary way to keep contact with us, but then obviously follow us on Twitter and Instagram. But all those links, you'll be able to jump on those links on the.
Perfect. So, Gordy, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Another great interview. Absolutely. Again, I learned a lot and had fun talking with you. So I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so much, man. It was so great. And I always love talking to you.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye. I just want to mention two things we're doing at Selling Your Screenplay to help screenwriters find producers who are looking for material. First, we've created a monthly newsletter that will be sent directly to producers. Every member of SYS Select can submit one logline per newsletter. I went and emailed my large database of producers and asked them if they would like to receive this monthly newsletter of pitches. So far, we have about 170 producers who have signed up to receive it. These producers are hungry for material and happy to read scripts from new writers. So if you want to participate in this pitch newsletter and get your script into the hands of lots of producers, sign up at sellingyourscreenplay.com/select, or you can go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. And secondly, we've partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads sites so we can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, we've been getting about 10 to 12 high quality paid leads per week. These are producers and production companies who are actively looking to buy material or are actively looking to hire a screenwriter for a specific project. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. These leads run the gamut from production companies looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their own ideas. We have producers looking for shorts, features. We have producers looking for TV and web series pilots. It's a huge array of different types of projects. So no matter what type of a writer you are, I'm sure you'll be able to find some quality leads in our leads service. And these leads are exclusive to our partner and they're exclusive to SYS Select members. So you have to join to get access to these leads. To sign up, go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/select or sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. I recently set up a success stories page for people who have had success through various SYS services. So if you want to check out what some other people who have tried our services are saying, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. Also, if you've had success with any of the SYS Select services, please do let me know. It's inspiring to hear these success stories, so I'd love to share your story either on our success page or even with a podcast interview. So if you've had success, please do contact me. In the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Scott Morgan. He is a screenwriter and producer. A few years ago, he moved over to China and he's built up relationships with Chinese production companies, and he's got a whole bunch of films that are sort of in the pipeline. There's a ton of opportunities. I've talked about this on the podcast before. There's a ton of opportunity in China. China is absolutely exploding in sort of their growth in the entertainment industry. So there's a lot of new companies that are trying to get into it. Over in China, they have a lot of money. A lot of them don't have a lot of experience with writing high quality scripts, with production. So that means there's opportunities. These Chinese production companies, they want American writers who have had some success, or even if you haven't had success, they just view the American writers as having more experience and having just a little more knowledge of what makes a good movie. So they really want to work with American writers. So getting into this market, it's an emerging market, kind of getting into this at the early stages it's important, and it can really, there's a lot of, as I said, a lot of opportunities over there. So anyways, I had Scott on. I knew Scott had some experience with the Chinese marketplace. I've had a lot of questions. There's questions about censorship, what actually is the Chinese government going to allow? There's questions about how to actually work with these production companies. So I had a lot of these questions, and I got turned on to Scott and saw that he had a lot of experience on that. So I asked him to come on the podcast and just talk about this, and he was more than happy, and he really offers a lot of great insight. So if you're interested in writing for this market, and these do not have to be Chinese movies, a lot of them are American movies, but with a slight Chinese angle. So it might be like, an action movie that takes place in America with someone from China in it. Those kinds of movies, just something that has sort of cross cultural appeal. Those types of scripts can really work. And again, this is all stuff I get into with Scott in the interview. So keep an eye out for that next week. I'll be publishing that next Monday. So I talked about, to wrap things up, I think a lot of what I talked about today with Gordy in terms of the contest. Gordy runs the Blue Cat Screenplay competition. So I did talk to Matt Dye last week, the Austin Film Festival. So I do want to mention that again. I created a post on my blog. I'll link to it in the show notes. The URL is kind of unwieldy, but basically in that post, I listed out a bunch of contests that I thought were reputable contests. I think there's 10 or 11 contests on there. And, if the contest isn't on this list, it doesn't mean that it's not reputable. I just put a list together of all the contests that seem to be the most reputable in the industry. So if you're looking for contests or you're wondering, gee, is this contest reputable, go check that out. As I said, I think there's 10 or 11 contests on this list, and I will link to it in the show notes. It's just a blog post where I list the contests and say a little something about them and link to them. So that's a real good place to start. I definitely think you want to make contests a part of your marketing strategy. So checking out this post is a good place to start. And furthermore, checking out the Blue Cat Screenplay competition is also a good place to start. You just heard Gordy. As I said, I think he's got a lot of of experience, and it's a great contest to enter. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.